Hello, legends. Boy, have I got a guest for you. We are going to be talking about veterans trauma, or the thing behind the thing, as they call it in the States. We're going to be looking at children's medication, uh, possibly those events in New York and Washington back along. We're going to be talking about Cuba, chemtrails, the Kundalini, and last and probably best last, Trudeau. Let's get into it. Dave, how you doing, brother?
Chris, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, it's absolutely my delight. I did a little intro bit there just because, as I said earlier, I was listening to your podcast in the garden while I was getting a bit of vitamin D. Can you just remind us the name of the podcast, Dave, so we can give them a shout out?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was on the American Grit podcast. That's the Grunt Style Foundation's podcast, and they're doing a lot of great work in the United States. And they invited me down to discuss my book, Harden to Fuck Up.
Absolutely. Folks, I'll flash that podcast up on the screen in a minute. Dave, if you see me looking over there, I'm not being rude. I got three screens on the go, plus some notes down here. But friends, yeah, I was listening to Dave chatting there, and it was kind of like listening to myself, and it's just so great when veterans get it, because the mental health crisis is just not funny. Um, the last friend I had who killed himself was what was 3 weeks ago now. A dear chap. The last Facebook message he wrote me was when I was rowing across the Atlantic in January, and he said, "Chris, you're such a massive legend. You're an inspiration to veterans everywhere," or something like this. And I wrote back, "No, you're the legend, dude," and I really meant it. And to think he was in that frame of mind when he wrote that very kind thing to me, that he then went and took it, and he left an awfully sad Facebook post before he went, and everyone, there was thousands of responses to that Facebook post, Dave, saying, "Dude, no, don't do it. You're massively loved. It's never the way." Da, 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 da. So to hear you talking about it on that podcast, Dave, was a breath of fresh air. So welcome to the Bought the T-shirt podcast.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, the veteran suicide crisis is no joke. And we're just chatting offline there before we hit record. It's kind of like, oh, there's crisis over there. Oh, that's so sad. Too bad. All right, well, what's next? And it's because of that indifference that I decided to start talking on my own show and start writing books. And, I attack the suicide crisis from the point of view that we just need to get healthier. That's what I know. So I stick to what I know. And I'm sure we'll get into a bunch of it on this conversation for sure.
Absolutely. So I had two chaps on my podcast. They're from a UK um, uh, veterans organization. They offer kind of, respite and recovery sort of packages. And they just got back from the United States, and they said, "Chris, in the States, they call it the thing behind the thing." And as soon as he said it, I knew what he was talking about: childhood trauma. He means the thing that, like, no one's talking about this, Dave. Everyone thinks PTSD is something you get on the battlefield, you know, whereas, as you know and I know, yeah, unpleasant things, atrocious things happen on the battlefield. Um, but it's would you agree, Dave? It's trauma in our younger years that gives us this kind of inability in adulthood to process things in a kind of constructive way.
Yeah, I think you're bang on. I think the research, and this isn't something I really go down any rabbit holes on, but from what I understand, it's over 50% of those that suffer from post-traumatic stress in the military anyways. And the military attracts, especially in the special forces ranks, dudes that have experienced childhood trauma. Like that is a known factor. And why? I think it's because, and I'm, you can fact check me on this, but it's because you create this kind of Superman complex. Like, I'm not going to let anybody else get hurt. Nobody's going to touch my family. I'm going to be the baddest motherfucker you could possibly imagine. So I'm going to join the baddest unit that exists, whether it's, here in Canada, it's JTF2, or in the UK, it's the Royal Marines or SAS, or in the States, the SEALs, whatever it may be. You have guys that have a chip on their shoulder they want to protect. So they join a sheepdog unit, even more so than the regular infantry guys. I was an infantry sergeant, but the from my point of view, I didn't experience childhood trauma like a lot of these other guys did. So I think I got out a little bit more unscathed. And I think you're right. The layering, and the best analogy I learned was like, it's like you got a backpack and you got so many rocks in your rucksack. And then you add in the wartime trauma that comes with it. And now your rucksack is way too heavy. And it's just weighing you down. It's weighing you down, weighing you down till it gets too much. And you need to learn how to take those rocks out and lighten the load. Give it to your battle buddies, give it to your family. Like, there's people there that want to help, but you got to be willing to offload it. And I think that's where we're at in terms of healing from the 20 years of the global war on terror. We need to start getting to that point where we're no longer in crisis. We're in that healing phase, and that's where I hope to lend a hand.
Dave, let's tell your story a bit, because you're no stranger to challenges. I love the bit about somebody who's done. I did 4 Ironmen in a row.
Oh, jeez.
Um,
Yeah, I read that.
it took me 7 days, but sorry, I'm fucking showing off, but no, I'm not showing off. I'm making a point that yeah, we do go to extremes, don't we? And can we just
Mhm.
tell your story, because some gold stuff comes out of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, 4 Ironmans, and wow, that's back to back is impressive, Chris. Not gonna lie. I don't know if you're familiar with the Iron Cowboy, who
Who did 52 in a row?
did 50, and yeah, in all 50 states, I believe. The documentary's on Netflix. Canadian, by the way.
Ah,
Good old
okay.
Canadian boy. Yeah. So that, I mean, yeah, I did an Ironman, and it's funny. It's probably because of our military background, right? For me, I'm like, yeah, I just did an Ironman. Where most, you talk to, let's say, civilians, oh my God, you did an Ironman? It's like, yeah, whatever, no big deal. It's typically how we treat things, right? You did 4 back to back. Oh my God, 4 back to back. That's insane. Um, and that all came about for me through a promise I made myself when I was sitting on my bunk in Afghanistan in 2011. We had a pretty rough day, and I said, man, if I make it back, even if I'm missing body parts, I'm doing the Ironman. And I'm going to do it for some of the guys we lost, and just to show, like, hey man, we can do this. And I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it as well. And I said I was going to do it before my 40th birthday. I was 29 when I was deployed. So in true Dave Morrow fashion, I procrastinated until I was 39 years old to get the pressure on and do the Ironman. So that was 2021, I believe, or 2022, in the height of COVID. It was pretty rough. I mean, it was just, lockdowns here were brutal in my province here in Canada, in Quebec. We had curfews, and I was losing my mind. But the thing that kept me sane was going out for early runs, late bikes. I was just solo. All the gyms were closed, and I just was grinding out the miles. And I actually had to do it around my neighborhood, because the event, I don't know if you're familiar with the event here just outside Montreal, it's in Mont Tremblant. It's one of the premier events on the circuit. It was canceled last minute. Oh, COVID. I'm like, it's outside. Like, guys, come on. Like, we're going to wear masks when we go in the water. Like, come on, guys. Like, we're the fittest people on earth here. There's no reason for us to cancel the event, but they did. And I wasn't going to let all that training go to waste. So I decided to do it around the house. I got my trusty second in command to take charge of the logistics, my wife. So she coordinated all the support. It was awesome. But essentially, what that led to, I'd started a business. I started a small company that really focused around my first book, which was The Nimble Warrior, to help veterans get out of the pain cave, as I call it. I borrowed that term from Dr. Kelly Starrett because I had a career-ending injury. I blew my back out and I blew my knee out. And the military didn't want to hear any of my story. They're just like, dude, you're hurt. So long. I'm like, what? Can I remuster? Can I join something else? Like, please, I want to stay in. Nope. See ya. So my interpretation of that was I'm broken for life. That's it. There's nothing I can do. The army said, I'm done. I'm toast. My back hurts all the time. It's just constant pain meds. They're giving me opiates and really didn't want to take them. I was getting chubby. It was just miserable. I got back into teaching high school. That was my career path, anyways. And I wasn't doing well. I had a kid, I had a house, we had a mortgage, young family, and something just was off. And one day I just decided enough's enough. And in true infantry fashion, I just quit my job and decided I'm going to figure it out. Started working for a tech company. That was a disaster. And then I just started my own company just out of the blue. And my wife, God bless her, like, she's like, Dave, are you sure about that? Yeah, yeah, honey, don't worry about it. I can do anything, right? It was my mentality. And so that's where the book came from. And I started helping fellow veterans and guys at my old unit just avoid injuries, make their injuries a little bit more manageable, just through some basic techniques that you can do at home with a foam roller, some basic exercises that I wish I had learned, because really it was because of those exercises I was able to get out of bed again and actually play with my kids. I was like, oh, I don't need to take pain meds. Oh, that's great. Why didn't the army tell me this? So I realized there was something there. And then that started the podcast. I love talking about science. I have a science background. I was a teacher, so I love conveying knowledge. And I just always dreamed about talking to the coolest people that I've read about, like I've read their books, I've listened to their podcasts, to have them on my show and just have a chat. And that's what turned into my podcast, the Hard to Kill podcast. And so all that just loops back into the Ironman and all the other things that I've decided to take on in terms of physical challenges, but also, entrepreneurial ones, is basically part of the healing journey after a tour in Afghanistan and a 15-year career in the Canadian Armed Forces. And to really give back the best way I know how, which is conveying the knowledge that I've learned for veterans, packaging it up. So I speak veteran. I think I speak it relatively well, so that an individual can just grab onto something, be like, right, got it, check. What are my action steps? Boom, boom, boom. Okay, let's take that action step and let's actually get healthy. And that's why I've committed to helping 100,000 veterans lose 2 million pounds.
Yeah, it's Dave. It's amazing, and I want to. So, first off, just a quick question: your
Mhm.
back, and did you say knee?
Yeah,
Yeah, was that blown out in theater, or was that
yeah,
just?
yeah. So, I mean, I wish I could say I was like knee deep in grenade pins and fighting off a horde of Taliban, but I literally just picked up my gear and my back herniated in two spots. Bang, bang. Oh shit, what's that? Young enough and had a big enough ego to be able to make it back to camp. And I just swallowed, Advils. I don't know what you guys call them. I don't know if you call them Motrins or over in the UK, but essentially I just took pain meds while deployed. I didn't tell anybody, right? Because I wanted to stay in theater. My knee was, I fell off one of those high walls there and it just got twisted in the wrong spot and put a knee brace on, soldiered on. And then later on down the road, I think it was in 2019 around ish, I went to the docs and like something wasn't right in my head. And they're like, "Oh, dude, Jeff, you got post-traumatic stress, man." I was like, "Me?" I was like, "Nah." I was like, "I can't have post-traumatic." They're like, yeah, you do. So let's go do some programs and let's start working on that." So yeah, all those things combined actually was a blessing, because if it wasn't for those injuries, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now. So I really leaned into Stoic philosophy and Christianity and really started realizing like these are happening for me. And I think that's one of my main messages I'm realizing. It's like, yeah, we just got to get rid of that hole in the veteran space. Like, woe is me. And it's a shame because, you go down that path, and I've had these thoughts too, these dark thoughts. I've never attempted to take my own life, but I could see where it can go.
Yeah.
And you start believing the things that dark voice in your mind is telling you. And I'm like, oh shit. But I was able to recognize it, be like, that's not where I want to go with this. And so I was able to have that standoff distance. But you were talking earlier about the conversation I had with Tim from Grunt Style, and they're on a crusade to get the SSRIs out of the veteran community, because one of the major symptoms, one of the major side effects of SSRIs is suicidal ideation. And, he has a heartbreaking story of one of his good buddies. He was a dad, two, three kids, doing great, actually. Went to the VA because he wanted to quit smoking. That was it. They put him on Wellbutrin. A few weeks later, he blew his brains out. Like, what the hell is going on? And that's part of what I'm noticing too, is that the veteran community is over medicated, and it's going to be very hard to heal when you're just put on these drugs and not given any other protocol other than SSRIs and talk therapy. And then you wonder why you're not getting better. And then you still have a devastating suicide crisis within the veteran community. I'm hoping to be able to bring some awareness to there's other ways forward that are 100% within the medical standards, and we need to start talking about it and actually pushing our representatives to actually allow us to get these treatments, whether it's in the UK, Canada, or the United States, so that we can actually heal and be important, productive members of our society. Because I think we're one of the most important generations since the greatest generation, because we went through all the shit that we were asked to do for 20 years. We're still young. We can still kick ass and take names. Let us get into the fight, because God knows we need a lot of us that can actually contribute back in our societies, because things are starting to fall apart pretty quickly. At least that's what I can see from here.
Yeah, we'll come on to this destruction via immigration in a bit, but what was I going to say? So, long story short, in my case, is yeah, I couldn't really go any lower from drug addiction, and I'd come through chronic psychosis, which I lived sort of off and on in for about 6 months. Um, and
This is post service. This
yeah,
is just
this is your typical come out of the safety umbrella of the forces,
Mhm.
realize you're still that little kid that joined like
Right.
nothing mentally apparatus, as you guys would say, wise. Nothing has changed. Nobody's put any, okay, I can run fast and climb and shoot a rifle, and I'm mentally strong, but I don't know how to deal with things, right? And I'm simplifying this obviously for people that are coming at this that haven't had the experience. But long story short, I ended up homeless in Hong Kong, in psychosis from chronic crystal meth addiction, whilst working in a Hong Kong nightclub as a doorman. And if you know who runs the Hong Kong nightclubs, I really was in the wrong place to be mentally unwell. Anyway,
Mhm.
fast forward back in the UK. I just remember, like, probably my darkest moment. I was cold, shivering, literally starving, couldn't go any lower. In nervous breakdown, what must have been nervous breakdown, I think number 3 by this time. And I couldn't even go out the front door, Dave. That's how damaged I was. I couldn't face seeing someone I knew because I didn't know what to say to them, how to explain, you know. Anyway, cut long story short, in that moment, I suddenly realized what I'd done to myself. Okay, albeit inadvertently or subconsciously, or you could say the dark side, whatever. And I had to take ownership of it. And as I cried my eyes out, I said, I'm. I pictured myself as that, damaged little toddler, little boy that adults let him down. Adults, you could say, failed him. And I thought, Chris, who's failing him now, dude? It's fucking you. Stop shoving that shit in your arm, and at least cut it down. You're never going to be an angel, but start trying to. And what happened is, literally, as I thought this, the light started shining through my blinds, which I always kept shut because, my house was just trashed. I had paraphernalia, that I shouldn't have done
Hmm.
everywhere. I'm talking about drug paraphernalia. And as this light came in through the window, Dave, I made a promise. I said, I'm going to start being grateful for this life because I'm here and a lot of my buddies are dead now. And in the military, as you know, people die in horrible, not just related to theater, but horrendous when young people die.
Hmm.
And I thought if they were here now, what would they do? Would they'd be embracing life? So that's what I did. And I thought I'm going to cut down, I'm going to cut down on that stuff. And rather than spend all of my benefits money on it, which was it's not a lot, it was like 60 UK pounds a week, I think I was getting. I thought
Right.
I'm going to spend a tenner a fortnight, and when it's gone, it's fucking gone. No chasing it, no like picking up the just when it's gone. You've had your little buzz, you've had your we call it acting out, and what happened is uh, I went off to sleep, and I'm still heavily. I'm yet to do my come down, as you can say. So I woke up in the morning, Dave, and ordinarily, where I literally would have rolled over in depression, knowing that I had no gear left, I had no enthusiasm that I could inject into me, that I had to face life with no money, no job, a smashed up hovel to live in, and my shopping budget was £1.75. Like literally less than $10, and rather than roll over and go to sleep for another like 2 or 3 days just to try to fend off the chronic depression, I jumped up, I threw the curtains open, I said, "Morning, sun. Thank you so much for this opportunity called life. Um, and let's go and make a cup of tea." Instead of like preparing a needle,
It's very British.
I went and I put the kettle on, and it was symbolic,
Yeah.
very British, but it was symbolic, Dave, of taking action. And that's what I did. And within no time at all, the universe just started giving back to me. Friends came back that I hadn't seen for ages, and I got work, albeit I became a tobacco smuggler from Europe, but but it was paid employ. It was respectful paid employment, and I could buy clothes, and 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 from that point on, I've gone on to live, work, and travel in 85 countries across all 7 continents, and I've just done every single thing on the planet that I ever wanted to do, whatever it was: flying, skydiving, just rode across the Atlantic. And I'm not saying this to show off, although I suppose I am allowed to a bit. I'm just saying the power of stop being a victim. You're not a victim. You've had shit happen to you. Be grateful for it because it's taught you a lot. And what I wanted to ask you, David, in your way, did you have that moment, or were things more sort of gradual?
Well, I talk about it in my book. There was a moment where I remember I just dropped off my kids at daycare. And I can't remember the context as to why, but I had to bring the stroller back because it was a local daycare. There's a local lady who took care of them. And I think she just didn't want the strollers at her place. So I was like, cool. So I would walk back with an empty stroller. And this is at the point where I'm no longer in the military. I no longer have a career. I have 2 young kids. I'm not making any money, and I don't know what I'm doing. And I remember I live close to the river here. And I remember just looking at the river, walking home with this empty stroller, and I just bawled my eyes out. And I said, I can't be a failure for my kids. I can't be a failure. Because all I was thinking was like, I'm such a loser. Look at me. I don't even have a kid in my own stroller right now. It was all these symbolic things that just weighed on me so much for weeks and months and years that I realized I need to figure my shit out. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do it. And it was that moment that I said, okay, I had my cry, grown man bawling his eyes out, walking back home, right? I can only imagine what people were thinking, right? But it was really one of those moments that I just realized I can't keep on beating myself up. Whatever happened, happened, but I got two kids now that absolutely need me to show up and get it done. And, you mentioned a bunch of things there, Chris, that you made a contract and you're talking about the light coming in. Now, I don't know if you believe in God or not, but you basically, from what it sounds like, made a contract with God or the universe. Like, I am going to sort my life out right now. And the thing that human beings hate doing is breaking contracts with not only themselves, but with a higher power. And that's why you nailed it, gratitude. Gratitude is that respect for all things, that if you don't have it, and we're very purposeful people, right? I mean, just by virtue of being in the military, choosing the military and staying in and having a great career, we absolutely need to find some higher purpose. One, because the military, I'll be honest, for me, that was my higher purpose. I loved it. Don't have it anymore. What do I do? So you're grasping at straws. You don't know what to hold on to. Thankfully, I had this I was very fearful. Everything I did was very rooted in fear. And I've only like recently been able to kind of unwind all that. All my decisions, marrying my wife, getting a house, having kids was all, oh shit, bad things are going to happen. Circle the wagons, build the empire, get the moats up, like literally build fences around my house, get the guns, like just like solidify my position. And then I had to realize, like, wait, like the threat isn't like I don't have that threat anymore. Why am I still in this fight or flight mode? Because I wasn't expressing the gratitude in these moments because I was more in well, I need to build up, I need to secure. Now I'm in that phase where I'm more appreciative, like, oh my God, actually, everything I've wanted to do, that I've visualized, that I've set out for myself, having a family, being an entrepreneur, traveling, having a beautiful wife. I've done everything. So I need to put back into the universe that gratitude. And it's probably been the best, if you want to call it mental health strategy that has been talked about for since the dawn of time, right? Hey, be a little bit more grateful, be grateful for your day, be grateful for your breath, thank God that you're here today. These are important parts of who we are as a human, and I'm finally reconnecting with that. And I haven't felt better. And so to echo what you're saying, like, what were to have those low moments, I want to touch base on the fact that you had clearly a very low moment. And were I listening to your conversation a few years ago, I would start to feel self-conscious because I'm like, oh, I didn't really hit that rock bottom. Who am I to talk about what I'm going through? Who am I to write a book? Who am I? And I don't know if that's a veteran thing, but it's definitely a me thing where you think, well, I didn't attain the most elite soldier level and have a body count of 100 Taliban fighters. So
Do you know what Dave
can't,
Morrow would say? He'd say, dude, that's a trauma response.
there you go. And so that's exactly part of what I'm trying to convey now too, is like, Chris, your story is your story. And man, I'm so glad you're here. You're kicking ass and taking names and you're giving back to the community. My story is a little bit different, but I recognize that I have a story and everybody has a story. And if you're willing to share it, that was for me the biggest thing that got me out of the hole was to actually start sharing, even though I didn't want to. I didn't want to talk about my stuff. Why would I want to talk about it? It's hard. It sucks. My first few podcasts, I'm stumbling all over the place. I don't know how to speak properly. I was burping half the times. I realized burping is a reaction to stress. Why am I burping? And then slowly but surely, I started getting a little bit better. I realized I liked it. Oh, people actually listen. People are writing me comments, and you're not getting Joe Rogan level exposure. And if you're starting, I mean, don't expect many people to listen. But what I've learned is that this journey that I'm on has been more cathartic than anything. And I'm curious to know, like, was the podcast part of that cathartic kind of rebirth where you're realizing, oh man, like this is actually where I get to share and have the most impact possible.
That's a great question. Let me just peel back a bit. You said, did I find God? And I was always very wary of, you know, any group that would have me. You don't want to be in that group, Dave. Believe me. So, but no, it's almost metaphorical, but it's also true. When I say the light came in, my life changed, mate. It literally changed there. From that moment on, I knew, don't ask me how, but in hindsight, it's my Kundalini sense. Your serpent power, your energy has changed because you've made the connection that society had previously cut off for you. And I knew my life would never be the same again. I knew I would never go back. And half the reason I knew my life would be perfect from that moment onwards, I'm not saying I don't have challenges, obviously, but the reason I knew I was in paradise is because you have the ability to choose. You've got the freedom to choose what you aspire to, what you do, who you look up to and who you don't, what dreams you chase. And rather than, I don't know, a crass example, I was never massively like this, but I probably was a bit, I'd no longer look at the guy in the Ferrari and think, oh, I wish that was me. I'd look at the guy in Ferrari and think, gosh, he's probably a bit he's probably a bit traumatized. He's massively cemented in his ego. I bet he's got a big mirror, and and I'm being a bit, flippant, but my knife was never the same. But what it was actually getting to is by taking that action and only spending the £10, and the universe instantly gave me back tenfold.
Mm-hmm.
And I went on a mission, albeit fueled by ego initially. My ego said, well, what have you done? What are you good at? You can't hold down a job because you're not qualified for anything except, guard duty or go into war. And the guard duty option's going to be pretty low brow for you because you're going to get fed up being a security guard pretty quickly. And, if you go to war, what are you really doing? You're just an extension of the system again that's you're kind of waking up to now. So I went traveling instead, and I just decided to travel to every single country that I'd ever dreamed of to experiencing it there. But before I did that, my calling was to go and work in Mozambique in Africa with street kids.
Uh-huh.
I was just called to do it. My friends couldn't understand it. My family were like, "You're mental. What, you're going to do a job and you don't get paid?" And that's as far as they could see. And I couldn't explain this. Like, no, a limited amount of people supported me when I was unwell. It was a very small amount. And I'm giving back because of them. They loved me enough to say the things that kept me going. And I'm going, and yeah, I could have done voluntary work in my backyard. I know that, but it's just that I came across an advert in a newspaper. It jumped out at me. It said volunteers required to work in sub-Saharan Africa, training provided. I thought, bloody hell, they usually ask for a degree for this sort of thing, which I didn't have back then. And again, long story short, that chain of events, because I kept following the program. I don't mean like, 12 step or anything. I've never done any of that. I mean, I kept following the universe program, the God program, call it what you will, that if you do these simple things, they call it the Hermetic principles, you will live in paradise. That's the only place. It's literally how the equation works. And this is why I wanted to talk to you, because you summed it up so well in that podcast when you said there's so many simple things as a struggling veteran that you can do that you're probably not even aware about, that if you do for 30 days, you're going to be a different person. And that just so relates to the story that I'm telling, Dave. So can we, and the podcast, this is where I wrote a book because I got fired from a job for gross misconduct. So I had to take them, I took them to the cleaners and they had to pay me a whole load of money because, having a job is just fucking unfair. And it's the managers in jobs that are not the people that are best at doing the job. They're the people that creep enough to get through the system. Anyway, as a kind of fuck you, I just sat down and the first time I got fired, I wrote my, can I call it a best-selling memoir? It was number 2 bestseller in Hong Kong anyway. And
Nice.
I wrote Eating Smoke, which is, folks can see it up there. And that was about ego. That was about, I was still kind of dabbling in the substances, quite, sporadically. And every time I did, I had this massive yearning to be someone, I don't want to live a mediocre life. And I thought, I'm never going to be the lead singer in a rock band. Well, never say never, but Oasis already had a lead singer. What can I do? I thought, put the computer on, write a book. What can I write about? Well, just tell your Hong Kong story. And I spoke to my American buddy who'd written a book. I said, look, should I do this? Who's going to want to listen to my story? And he's like, Chris, just write your story. It's fascinating. He said, but just do one thing. Just write it honestly. You don't need to embellish it because it's just, and that's what I did. I told everyone I'm writing a best-selling book. I had all the usual, oh yeah, fuck off, Chris. I had people like sneer at me and go, well, if you'd like me to read it when you've done, I'll tell you whether it's any good or not. And I was so full of like, there's some things, Dave, it's just like, I'm not going to write a shit book. I'm just not going to do it.
Right.
I'm not going to do it. So when I walked through Heathrow Airport on my way to Hong Kong for my book launch, I was a best-selling Hong Kong author. I was treated like a VIP over there, what with their Chinese kind of etiquette. And I walked through Heathrow Airport, and in the bookshop in Heathrow, my book was at that time in the UK was number 12 bestseller, and I'm one below a very famous footballer, Man United footballer Gary Neville, and I'm one above James Corden, and
Right on.
And at this point I should say fuck you, James, but that's a different story. And so fast forward to the podcast. So that was all ego. That was all, look, I'm recovering from this chronic addiction.
Yeah.
I'm getting out and about, I'm traveling the world. It's all great. But when I step into a bar and I meet an old schoolmate, they're usually earning like £30,000 a year. You got to remember this is like 15 years ago. And here I am, I'm sort of barely earn anything. And I still had managed to keep hold of my house through all of this, even though I'd smashed it up. But, I didn't have any high-flying career. And so the book was ego. Getting a publishing deal was like the cherry on the cake, that now I can go in the bar and meet old people that I know, and I can feel like I'm meeting them on their level. It was a total security kind of thing. The podcast was completely different, but by the time the podcast come along, I was well down the road to enlightenment. The ego I was having, doing my best to keep in check all the time. And I started to watch the early days of Joe Rogan. And I couldn't believe that you could listen to a chat between a former MMA like warrior and a Navy SEAL that's just swum from like Hawaii to Oahu, punching sharks on the way. I thought I'd come
Yeah.
home, Dave. You know, I
Yeah.
thought I've come home. And I used to listen all the time until that point where things changed. People either know what I'm referring to or not, but um, and so you cut long story short, just like you said, I thought I want a job where I talk to interesting people like Dave Morrow about subjects where we might not always have the same viewpoint, but things that are fascinating, things that are out the box, people that are doing the stuff that I can live vicariously, you know, vicariously through. Um, and that's why I did it. So, sorry, I'm friends at home. I know I'm talking a lot, but I hope this is all relevant. Back to Dave. Could we talk about those simple things that people who are in trauma and who are struggling? What are the simple things you could do like now?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much, and thanks for sharing all that. The You don't need to have this breakthrough moment. I think we can all often get paralyzed through the analysis, so paralysis through analysis. What do I do now? But what's the most important thing for longevity? What the most important thing for your health is action. That's it. There's no secret sauce. If you're coming from the military, you're a veteran, you likely need some structure, because I know when I left, the hardest thing was not having continual structure. Now, I was a reservist, so I had 1 foot in civilian land, 1 foot in military land. So I oscillated between the two. So I still had some civilian strategies that I was able to employ my day to day. So when I was fully out, when I came back from deployment, when I was sort of able to start piecing things together, not from zero, but let's say, I at least had some foundation. Like I knew I had to get a gym membership. I had a coach. But for somebody that's you're in the military, you no longer have PT in the mornings, you're maybe 10 years down the line, you haven't really even figured it out yet. What is the simplest thing that you can do in the morning? And you already mentioned it. You made a tea. It doesn't have to be fitness related. It has to be habit related. And I don't know if you're familiar with the habit loop, but I'll just give you just a quick breakdown of essentially how you make habits, right? Your habits are hardwired into your brain. And the reason why we brush our teeth every morning, assuming you brush your teeth every morning, is, and you don't remember it, is because you've hardwired it, because there's cues. You get up in the morning at roughly probably the same time, and then you walk over to the toilet, you piss, and then, in my case, I go brush my teeth right away. Maybe you go downstairs, you have your tea, maybe you have a bite to eat, and then you come upstairs, you brush your teeth. But all of that is a habit. How do you incorporate now the habit of fitness or health, however you want to see it, into your day to day? So there's a bigger discussion as to like, why am I doing this? Which is kind of like the first step. Why do you want to actually be healthy? If you can't identify that why, it's going to be super hard for you to carry on, because we all have this rock solid ability to do hard things because it was trained into us. However, when that motivation goes, then you have to rely on discipline. Are you going to keep on doing it if you don't have a strong reason why? It could be anything, right? It could be your kids, could be just, yay, I want to look good for the summer. Whatever it may be, you know, find out what it is. Think about it, write it down. I would say that's step one. Find out your big reason why you want to be healthy and fit. Typically, after that, you realize, man, I just don't like where I'm at. If you really don't like where you're at, okay, time to fix it. But I always caveat it that, man, you got to give yourself some grace. You got to be patient. If you've put on 30, 40, 50, maybe even 100 pounds since you've left the military, it is so hard on your ego. I get it. I mean, I put on 30, 40 pounds. I didn't feel great. I didn't look good. I was essentially crippled, and I still have flare-ups. I can't walk for sometimes weeks on end. But that being said, I've learned to just accept the fact that this is the rest of my life. I have a long runway. And what do I want to do with that? Well, I want to be able to chase down my grandkids, like full on, be at the park and just wrap them up and be able to go on the jungle gyms and do all that fun stuff. That's what I have envisioned, but that takes a ton of preparation and vision to get there so that when I'm in my 70s, I can still lift 50 pounds over my head. I can still run. These are all important things that I take into consideration. If that's the same for you, then the next thing you're going to have to do is just start with the simplest task. And in your case, it was making a tea. I always say, get up in the morning and have a glass of water, but add something to it, whether it's lemon, maybe a little bit of salt. So you're taking an action that's a little bit different than what you're used to. Make that part of your day because, tea is great. Coffee is great, but water, probably not drinking water, and you should be. Get some water into you. And then the important thing that you need to follow up with yourself on is, man, you got to mark it down somewhere. If you want to use an app, if you want to use a piece of paper on your fridge, it doesn't matter. Keep a constant tracker of what you're doing, because then you can celebrate a win. I know it may seem trivial. Hey, I drank a glass of water today. Yeah, but if you put a string of 10 days in a row together, you're going to get that dopamine hit. You're going to be like, oh, dude, that's great. I mean, I did that. Can I do 20 days? Can I do 30 days? Okay, so you've done that. Let's say you do that for 3 days in a row. Hey, you're doing pretty good. You're building in your ability to retain habits. Okay, what's something that you can do that maybe you're not ready to go to the gym? I get it. I don't typically go to the gym that often, but I exercise every day. One of the single most important things that you can do as a human being is move your body. And I'm not saying go beast yourself. I'm not saying do something, a workout you did when you were in the paras. I'm saying go for a walk. No weight vest. Like don't, no rucksack. Just put your shoes on. Go like today. You said it's a beautiful day in your neighborhood. Go for a stroll. Go look at the birds. Go do something that is not structured, but do it. And then put that on your list. Hey, did you walk for 20 minutes today? Did you garden for 20 minutes today? That counts. And it's swallowing the ego, not letting it kind of rear its ugly head and be like, dude, you didn't do thrusters. You're a bitch. Put that down. Put that down. It doesn't matter. Okay. 95% of North Americans don't do the bare minimum fitness every day, meaning they don't do 20 minutes of activity, not high intensity, just walking. So if you just keep that stat in mind, hey, if you consistently go for a walk for about 20 minutes a day, you're in the top 5% of, I'll assume folks from the UK, you're probably in the same boat too. You're in the top 5%, and just keep marking it down, keep marking it down. Okay. The next step is like, I outline like week by week. Okay. Can you do a 15-second cold blast of your shower? Doesn't require any equipment. You don't need a tank. Just make it a little uncomfortable. And you're talking about like the hermetic principles, right? Well, hormesis, which is a different principle, but it's just the application of good stress, and whenever you have eustress, good stress, like working out is a good stress. Blasting yourself with a little bit of cold is a good stress. It secretes a ton of dopamine. Apparently, this is what the research says. It's even better than cocaine. I've never done cocaine. It lasts longer, apparently. But that being said, I get in my buddy's cold tank regularly, right? I feel like $1,000,000, do 3 minutes in, out, and I carry on with my day. And then, start reading a book. I know it's not fitness related, but it's making sure your brain is actually active and learning new things. Reading a book is the reason why I'm here now. On top of all the other things I mentioned, I read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week while I was still teaching. I just left the military. I was teaching, and it just opened up my entire universe. I said, "Oh my God, I can use the internet to create a business." I never even thought about that. It's true. And that just started the whole cascade of ideas and reading more books. And I've always liked reading. So, if you can latch onto any one of those things that I put out there, but the most important thing is to take action. Once you take action, don't let the momentum stop, because we all get that feeling, right? Like, I'm going to take action. I'm going to take action. Yeah, that's your central nervous system saying like, dude, it's time. Testosterone goes through the roof. You're primed. That's the universe. That's God saying like, here's your window. Are you actually going to go through it? You can shut it because, like you said, you have your own free will. You can say, nope, not going through that door, not going through that window. But if you decide to, all right, there's going to be another one coming up. Are you ready? Cool. Keep on going. Keep on going. Keep on going. And that's how I've been able to carry on. And you're going to get failures. You're going to have problems. You even mentioned, like the perfect life with no problems. I would argue, that the perfect life has all kinds of challenges and problems. But you have the mindset that you can actually tackle them, that you can actually confront them, that you can get through them. And they're not happening to you, they're happening for you. And I don't know if you've read A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, but man, survivor of the Holocaust. And what kept him going was his mindset. It's the last thing that somebody can take. They can't take that from you. They can take everything, take every possession you have. They can kill your entire family. They can take everything from you. But the one thing that nobody can ever take from you is your mindset and how your outlook on life. And if you can start improving that, and it takes effort, trust me, you'll be unstoppable. And give yourself some time. It may take 5 years, it may take 10 years, it may take 20 years. Who cares? Just keep on moving forward. That's it.
It's funny that we've never met, and so if anyone out there has any doubt that these things work, so my morning was get up, make the bed always because it's an
Oh,
easy
yeah.
easy win that shows you you're in charge of your life. Brush the teeth. Uh, so water, one lemon mixed in, and I put super greens in because I like to be nice and alkaline in the morning. Took it to the pool. Nice sort of 10-minute drive to the pool. Just morning routine, isn't it? It's just a nice time to have for yourself before everybody else is up. I was at the pool by 5:30, in the water for 5:45. I did 10 25-meter lengths. So, as a triathlete, that's not very much, but it was plenty enough for me, Dave, enough to just remind myself that life's what you make it, and got out. I used to have my sauna there, but they decided to shut the sauna.
Oh, it's a shame. That's my favorite part of the gym.
Yeah, so I built one at home. I
Mm,
didn't I didn't put it
same.
on this morning because I had a lot on and I wanted to get straight into work. But it's just so funny. I've never met you. You've never met me, and yet we're saying exactly the same thing. So if there's anyone out there that doubts being grateful, taking action, and enjoying a simple walk, because I love walk. I particularly love it in the summer here to go out walking really early. There is something in the veterans equation, certainly in UK, Dave, that probably might not affect everyone, but if people are feeling a bit miserable, I would argue it's usually a contender, and that's alcohol, isn't it?
Mm, it's a bad one.
I think we're so indoctrinated in this country to think that alcohol is perfectly harmless and socially acceptable that when we get depressed, it doesn't it doesn't occur to us that this thing has a major a major effect on our mood.
100%. Well, I mean, I've been to the UK a bunch of times. I've been to Ireland a bunch of times. My family, there's still pieces of my family are still in Ireland, and I love the pub culture because it's novel to me. Hey, let's go out for a pint. Like, yeah, that's great. You can bring the kids. Hey, awesome. But I could see how it could really wrap you up. And if you're using it to medicate, that's a whole other story, right? That's a whole other story. And the topic of alcohol is really important to address because I even brought he's actually a doctor from the UK who practices in California talking about alcohol addiction, right? And the devastating effects it can have. He mentioned something that really stuck with me. He's like, alcoholics don't drink out of crystal. So he would like pour his vodka in a crystal glass because he was a doctor. He made all kinds of money. So in his mind, he's like, I'm not alcoholic. I don't have a problem. I drink out of a crystal glass. But in reality, he was ruining his life. And there's definitely, I can't speak to UK culture, but definitely military culture, especially here, right? But it's changing. The idea that you go and you have a drink with your boys, pretty standard. You're having a hard time, let's have a drink. Now, I don't I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with it. We have a hard enough time hanging out with each other in general. So yeah, the drink is kind of like the lubricant. Okay. But how do you ensure that doesn't become habitual? And how do you ensure that you're not doing it at home by yourself? And these are some really important questions. And the question I would just leave your listeners is like, if you could take the next time you have a drink and put yourself in the state of mind, like, am I doing this to just enjoy the moment? Like, is this, I just enjoy the alcohol. I'm having a really nice scotch. I personally love scotch. So I like having a good scotch because I like it. I typically don't have it, enjoy it by myself. I typically have, my father-in-law or my father or somebody around because it's a social thing. Do I have more than two? No. Because I don't feel the need to escape with it. I feel the need to enjoy it. Ask yourself that question. If it's more, I need to have, here we have, beers and, we have, we'll call it 24, a case of 24 beers, and you sit down and you start hammering beers. Are you doing that regularly? Are you drinking just to forget? Are you drinking that is a hard question to ask yourself. I'm not going to lie. But if you can, just be honest with yourself. And if that's the case, is it serving you? That's the only thing I could say. Like, you get to a certain point, is this serving me? Can you go to the pub and have a good time without the alcohol? Maybe have, I don't know, club soda. I don't know. I don't know. Will somebody take the piss out of you if you're having a club soda? Maybe. I don't know. But it's definitely a big issue in the military culture, and our generation too. Like I think we're around the same generation, so we definitely still had that drinking culture. Now, for what I've seen with the younger fellas, they're not drinking as much. I think that's an overall good thing.
Yeah.
But if we're talking on the health side of the house, alcohol is probably one of the worst things you can consume. If you're consuming it regularly, just the cascade of inflammatory proteins that just go boom, it's a poison. Your body doesn't want it. Your liver has to go into full detox mode. And if you keep on adding more and more and more, I mean, that never gets a rest. And if you're looking to improve your longevity, to have a better quality of life, your sleep just craters. Your ability to go into REM sleep just falls off a cliff. And that's an important factor too for a lot of us veterans. We have chronic sleep deprivation because of the careers we picked. That's just the reality of it. We'll never really fully get it back to baseline. Are there repercussions from that? Absolutely. But if you are habitually drinking, especially later at night, it interrupts your sleep pattern big time. And the less sleep you get, the more chance you have of increasing inflammatory diseases. Diabetes goes way up. Testosterone levels crater. It's just a bad equation. Let's put it that way, to put it lightly. So I would recommend, like, if you're going to have a drink, make it enjoyable. Make it your favorite pint, but have one. Kind of like the same thing on the habit list. Everybody's going to have a different habit list. Maybe it's, I had one drink today instead of 2 or 3 or 4. Cool. How many times can you do that in a row if you habitually drink? Can you reduce it? Can you get it to 0? Hey, make it a game. Because I would argue that eliminating alcohol, especially if you're a habitual user, is one of the most important things that you can do, because just long term, it's not serving you. The alcohol in your bloodstream is really toxic, causes a lot of inflammation and ruins your sleep. And just that alone, just the fact that I focus so much on like getting good sleep with the folks I work with, alcohol just doesn't make any sense if you're looking to improve your sleep and get better sleep. So I would say try to avoid it at all costs. And when you enjoy it, but make that a one-off just because you're having a special event. That would be my recommendation. But
Yeah. Fantastic points, Dave. I would just add to that and say that, if you really are struggling and it's making your life miserable and you're looking for a way out, well, whichever way you hear it described, it's I think whether you want to call it universe, God, Jesus, whatever, what essentially we're talking is making a connection. and that connection is essentially energy
Yep.
and vibration and frequency. That's the currency of life. And the one thing that alcohol does is literally sever that. It severs that. So it's not a lecture about, how to morally behave or whatever. It's more that if you're genuinely struggling, like, please give yourself a chance. And you know if it's that difficult to give up, well, then you need to get some support to, and that it is a factor in your life, because you're never going to live longer by drinking. That's one thing that we do know.
That's sounds about right. That sounds about right, Chris. Yeah. I would just add too, I mean, you brought up some good points there. But when it comes to drinking, and I'm going to make the assumption that most of the time it's done socially. If you're going to the pubs, right? You might need to change your friend group. And that might be the hardest thing to do because, they did a really interesting study with Vietnam veterans that were coming back from Vietnam, and there was, I think it was a third of all GIs were addicted to heroin. It was something insane, and they had congressional hearings. Like, what are we going to do with all these junkies that are coming back? This is going to be a really big problem. But the reality was, and it's not if you've heard already, but they didn't have a massive heroin problem with GIs that came home. They just came home and got on with it. They went back to work. They got, and they couldn't understand. Wait, hold on a sec, but it's heroin. Because they changed their environment. Their environment changed, and we're such habitual creatures. The war, they were coping with the horrors of Vietnam, being in the jungle with heroin. Bring them back to the States, no more need for heroin. How come? Well, you're not in the middle of a war. That was abnormal for you. So maybe it's the fact that you're going, I don't know, is it Thursday nights, Friday nights, Saturday nights? I don't know. Maybe it's every night. I don't know. Maybe you just need to change your circle of friends. Because I guarantee you, if you start hanging out with guys like yourself, they're like, hey, I'm thinking about paddling across the Atlantic Ocean. Whoa. Sorry, say that again. Yeah, I'm going to go for a swim. You start hanging out with the people that are taking their health seriously. You're not going to want to be the one guy that's shit-faced, hammered, sitting at the bar with them or sitting at home with them, or you're going to feel weird. You're going to be like, I don't really want to do that anymore. And slowly but surely, your habits will align with the people that you spend the most time with. That's based on what you said. I just realized, in order for me to get better, I was just start hanging out with different people. It was really that simple. I attribute a lot of what I've done to hang out with a different group of friends. They're all entrepreneurs. Hey, I'm an entrepreneur now too. What a surprise. They all have nice homes. They have nice families. It's just, we all hang out together. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder how that happens. Well, you're essentially an average of your closest people that you hang around with all the time. So that would probably be one of the best things to do. We're talking about how to stay fit and how to go find a community that you actually want to hang out with. Maybe one new friend that you always want to hang out with. Maybe it's you. Hey, let's just hang out. We don't have to say we're going for a workout, and then you just slowly realize, oh man, I kind of like this. Are there any other people to hang out with? That would be my kind of biggest recommendation, is to watch who you're hanging out with, and then be aware, and then start making the changes slowly but surely.
And Dave, you said the Canadian government wants veterans dead. Can we expand upon that?
Yeah. So I'm one of a very small group of Canadian veteran podcasters that are sounding the alarm bells. The two others are Kelsey Sharon, who's actually got a lot more notoriety. So folks want to tune into her. She's actually been on Piers Morgan. So funny thing about this whole scenario, I'll give you a backstory. I'm obviously a Canadian veteran. I have my own podcast. I talk about fitness and health issues to the veteran community, and I have my own company. So I value education. So I have a marketing and business coach who's actually from the UK. And we start chatting about business, and then he goes, hey, mate, what's going on with the VA in Canada offering suicide to its veterans? I go, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. It's like, no, I saw it here on the news. I'm like, in the news? What do you mean on the news? Like, you're in the UK, and he's not a veteran. He's not a veteran. Okay, that's weird. Turns out Kelsey was on Piers Morgan, one of the biggest shows on the planet, talking about this very issue. In Canada, zero coverage. You would think, hey, Canadian Armed Forces veteran, this would be plastered everywhere. Big headlines, Piers Morgan, wow. The story goes that there was a veteran to start, one, and in I guess the time span of a few weeks, this veteran just wasn't doing well, but not at the point where he was in crisis. And the reason why I know this is that we were in a chat group with other veterans, Canadian veterans, talking about this individual who I don't know personally. And he was offered by his case manager I guess the best way to put it is like the offer, okay, the chance at having the government kill him. And I thought it was a joke. I didn't believe it. But then I see Kelsey, and then I see more corroborating evidence. And then they have another individual, Mark. He's got a great podcast, Operation Tango Romeo, Canadian guy. And he's like, no. He's like, I've got the tapes. He goes to Parliament here. They have a parliamentary hearing, and they go, oh my God, this is awful. This will never happen again. And from what we can tell, it's only been offered 6 times to 6 different veterans. Okay, cool. We go a little bit further down the line, and they're still offering it. A few weeks ago, another individual comes out on, again, Mark's podcast. He's like, yeah, buddy, like I wasn't doing great, but you don't call the VA to have them end your life. You call because you're looking for help. It's hard enough for us to ask for help. So when you call, you're expecting, hey, like, what do you need? How can we help? But instead, there's a group of veterans that are literally on the phone and getting offered to kill themselves. But don't worry, Chris, we're the government. We're here to help. You sound like you're in a really bad place. Why don't we just end it for you? That would be better, wouldn't it? Like, we don't worry, we'll take care of your family. I had an individual on my show. He was in the training process. He wasn't fully qualified soldier yet. He was going through the ringer. It was just awful what he was telling me. A lot of abuse from his staff. He was falsely accused of sexual assault. That just crushed him. He's from a proud military family, so he thought this was going to be his career. He's young, right? He's in his 20s. And he tries to commit suicide. Then he starts having the thoughts again. He calls Veterans Affairs. He's like, I need help. They go, maybe we can help you with that suicide attempt. And he goes, whoa, that's not what I'm calling for. Talks to his wife. She freaks out. They're suing for millions, obviously. Had him on the show. Heartbreaking story. There's another individual who sued. The first guy, he sued, but had to sign an NDA. They settled outside of court. So clearly the government has accepted that, yeah, we're offering to kill our soldiers. And some of them we've shut up. And they keep on denying the fact that this exists. But the evidence keeps on piling up. And even if it's just one individual, which we clearly know it's upwards of a dozen now, have been offered medical assistance in dying here. Clearly, there is a training that's taking place at the federal level because it's in multiple different provinces, because every province has their own kind of jurisdiction with the VA, but ultimately they come from one bigger organization, federal organization. So that means that this is something that's been trained into their service agents. And why would they go ahead and think that this would be a good idea? The only thing I can come up with is that it's not a dislike, it's a hatred for what we represent. And we represent something, and I'm talking about, yourself as well, this idea that we're not just moral, but we're principled. We fought and did something for our countries that, whether or not you think it was the right thing to do, we thought it was the right thing to do. And we have this unspoken contract with our governments now. And we represent this dirty underbelly that they don't want to accept exists. That, yeah, the government actually sent its boys and girls over to kill a lot of people. And now we've come home and, yeah, we're aggressive. Yeah, we say what's on our minds. But also, we won't put up with bullshit. And we're costing them a ton of money and a ton of heartache because now we're on podcasts. Now we're on TV shows. We're talking about the stuff that went on over there that they don't want out. Handing over detainees that are war crimes, all these things that are coming out in the wash now. They're going, oh crap, man, we thought we could get rid of this. Like, can't we get these guys dead sooner? And so there's a culture within our culture here in Canada that despises soldiers, can't stand them. And Canada typically very polite, right? Like, oh yeah, thanks for your service. But in reality, if people, bureaucrats, faceless bureaucrats, that would rather see us dead than to provide us help. And that's the dirty underbelly that we're trying to bring to light here, is that part of denying our benefits, part of ignoring us, part of offering us aid is part of a bigger picture of just wanting us dead. I mean, Tim from the Grunstyle Foundation, like, case in point, he just exposed that, hey, the government has spent like $500 billion over the span of 20 years on suicide prevention in the United States alone. And it's done zero to reduce the suicide epidemic. What the hell's going on? You spend $500 billion and you can't figure something out. You should have people going to Mars for that amount of money. Can't figure out suicide? Of course you can figure out suicide. It's what we're doing here. It's writing up books. It's getting, all they would have to do is say, hey, Chris, let's get you on board here. Like, let's figure out how we can do this at scale. Clearly you're having an impact, Dave, all you guys, we could do it at scale at a much lower cost and actually heal these folks one by one. Let's come up with a plan. But they don't want to do that. They have no intention of ever doing that. So that's why my philosophy is like, no one's coming to save you. You have to start doing this on your own. And it's not the VA. It's not going to fix it. Yeah, you're going to come up with some great people that are actually going to provide you some help. I'm a beneficiary, so that's great. But they're not coming up with a program for me. They're not figuring it out. I'm figuring it out. And then you can figure it out as well. Because if I can do it, you can do it. And then that's the healing journey. It's not the institution that's going to figure it out for you, because they don't have any intention of trying to figure it out for you. You have to do it. So once you start taking that seriously, and once you start realizing like, hey, maybe I should pull back from the VA a little bit. Maybe I should just, not think that they're in charge. I'm in charge. Then you start seeing the difference, and then the culture changes. And that's essentially what I'm trying to get at here, is just change that culture of dependency on the government, because we're institutionalized folks, man. Like, that's just the nature of the beast. Grew up in the military. We expect them to provide for us. They're not. They're done. Here in Canada, they don't just want to like separate you. They want you actually dead. So take that as a sign, like big flashing red light, dude. They don't want you here. They don't want you here. So show them, give them the middle finger and be like, I'm going to be the best version possible. I'm going to do a million things for myself, for my family, for my community, and I'm going to be healthy as fuck. That's it.
Yeah, I guess if you think about it, that the governments they can't address veterans trauma, because to do so they'd have to address childhood trauma. Then they'd have to admit that 88% of veterans have been abused children, and that suddenly puts a whole different spin on who are they recruiting.
Well, and also, why is there so much childhood trauma going on in your society? What are you doing wrong? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
how's that even exist? It's crazy.
So just moving on to it before we finish, a couple of other slightly different subjects. I mentioned the sky, didn't I, earlier? There's a kind of lot going on in our skies here, and I know it's the same in the US. The UK government have just come out and announced that they're going to start geoengineering.
Oh my God, I saw that.
Yeah, with solar radiation management to bounce the sun back, basically using particulate matter, aerosol from aeroplanes. Now, anyone that lived in the UK, unless you're absolutely blind or totally naive, will have noticed they've been doing it for 10 years. Whenever it I don't know, I've heard different theories, but like, we don't get summers anymore. anyone that's my age will remember back in the 70s, you had these beautiful summers. They were just idyllic. You didn't like have to look up the sky and question things. It was just, it's the summer. You got the Simpsons clouds, and you might get this incredible rainstorm once a week in the evening because the plants need some water. In 76, I think it was, we didn't get that water and we had a massive drought, and everyone remembers how hot it used to be. Now, Dave, you're really, if you want to sunbathe, you're doing it in between, like whatever, in between clouds with this constant haze. I've looked into the chemicals in the jet fuel, and one of the ingredients is sodium. I don't know how, not being a chemist, I don't know how much this is responsible, but sodium, as we know, is what they use when they want to make it rain, because it draws in moisture. So these countries like, is it Dubai? They send up planes, they aerosol sodium it out, and it creates clouds. And the other day they overdid it and they flooded the place. So kind of crazy. UK government announced they're going to start controlling the sun in quote unquote climate change. Right at the time we're one of the heaviestly invested countries in solar power. There's literally, you couldn't make this stuff up. You couldn't. The patients have overtaken the asylum, and that's being rude to mental health patients. But I just wondered, like, what's it like in Canada? Are people starting to wake up to this, or is it like here the narrative that the media puts out is, oh, it's condensation, and of course the people that they're not aware of the fact that there's an agenda going on. They just repeat that and
well, I mean, similar to UK, right? We have the CBC, so that's state-funded media to the tune of $1 billion. Like they don't pump anything out unless it's from the government, essentially. I don't quite know if the BBC is as heavily funded, but I think you have BBC 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that correct?
Yeah, and now of course you got all the digital,
right?
The digital channels,
but it's all funded by or mostly by the government, if I understand correctly.
No, they always traditionally the public have paid for it in the form of a license fee, which I don't know what it is because I'd never pay it, especially I mean since the events in New York and Washington that time. I could no longer morally pay the license fee just because
interesting.
You can't support you can't support that behavior. But since the medical narrative, people are stopping paying it now in their hundreds of thousands.
Gotcha.
The BBC have lost enormous amount of revenue. It won't matter because they'll get it funded by the government.
Well, they'll just take on the Canadian model, which is essentially 100% state run. And nobody seems to understand that and that happened years ago. That means you have state run media. That's Soviet era stuff that goes on here. Canada is a black box in news, by the way. We have legislation that is creeping in, that has already been here actually for a little bit, that is all centered around like hate speech. What I'm seeing in the UK is even worse. I don't know if it's true or it's just my echo chamber, but it seems like folks are being incarcerated for social media posts, which we're not quite at here in Canada, but it's coming. It's coming, and since I call it the Great Awakening, I was podcasting already at the point where they started telling everything was safe and effective. Clearly, it wasn't. I'm a science teacher. I have a degree in literal biochemistry. I would teach my grade 9 students about vaccine theory, okay? How this all works. And then I'm looking at the news. I'm looking at what I know. I'm looking at the news, and I'm like, what they're saying is 100% incorrect. Like a grade 9 student understands the difference. So, oh, are they lying? Like, so I still had this naivete about the news media having the best interest of people at heart, even though I knew, you were talking about the New York incident. These things were, kind of eye-opening for me. But again, I was still young when these things happened. I just joined the military. And then we had the trucker convoy here in Canada. Trucker convoy, again, that's where the scales fell from my eyes. I was literally there on the ground, and then I watched the news the same day, the day after, and it's 100% fabricated. It's lies. I'm like, I was there. This is the one time in my life I can say, no, that did not happen. I was literally there. It's not what was going on. So then I realized, oh, there's something going on here. There's something way bigger. And Canada's instituted basically a blackout on all social media for news. You can't post anything that's related to the news on Facebook, Instagram. You won't get in the news. I can't post podcast episodes on Facebook or on Instagram because they'll get taken down because it's news. So what you're talking about, I have to get from third-party sources. So different podcasts. I listened to Patrick Bet-David podcast. I started learning about what you're talking about here, cloud seeding. The funny thing about cloud seeding is that I learned about this doing my biochem degree years ago, like almost 20 years ago. Potassium iodide is used, silver nitrate. It's a way to, if you need clouds to generate rain, it's been going on for decades. But then they literally have this capacity, and you'll talk to people that really don't want to believe that there is some sort of, I don't know if it's evil or some sort of maniacal plan to like reduce the global temperature by increasing the amount of reflection from the sun, and they're going to cloud seed. They will vehemently deny that. No, you can't cloud seed. You would never do that. Why would you do? I'm like, dude, you can just go on Wikipedia, man. Like, this is a known piece of scientific fact. You can create clouds. You can seed them. You put a plane up and you seed them. That has been going on for a long time. And based on what you're telling me, I've seen the snippets. I kind of wanted to ignore it because I'm like, oh. So what? They're just admitting now that, like everybody that was being gaslit into thinking that, yeah, you're not all, there's no such thing as chemtrails. Well, like if the last 5 years are any indication, everybody that had just their curiosity peaked, and the sense that, hey, maybe everything that they've been telling me on the news is a lie, it's just coming true now. Like, it's just, you can't go out on a limb and say, well, these people are conspiracy theorists. They don't know what they're talking about. It's like, hold on a sec, dude. Like, we just went through all this. Are you really going to go down that route? The people that are really into these topics, they know more than the quote unquote, we call them experts, because that's all they do. They sit and they just learn about this stuff. And this whole idea that you're going to somehow reduce the global, like this obsession about carbon dioxide or carbon. I don't know what the hell is going on. I can only factor it. The only factor I can think of is that it's money based, right? People are getting like filthy rich, and the average individual just gets to suffer based off their stupidity, right? And Canada, case in point, we contribute to what, like 1 point something percent of the global CO2 emissions. Yeah, we crack down the hardest on our CO2. We don't even export our oil really because, well, it creates a lot of CO2. It's like the Chinese are burning coal like crazy that we're literally sending over to them. What's the matter with you? Like, this whole idea that you're going to save a planet based off of modeling for some theory. Like, and so give your listeners just a bit of context. I was full in on the save the planet narrative. That's one of the reasons why I want to become a science teacher. I was like, dude, we got a problem. The government says we have a problem. We got to fix it. Shit, let's get that CO2 down. And then thank God I have this one colleague, is a buddy of mine, Australian. He's the one dissenting voice in the science department. He's like, this research doesn't make any sense, right? I'm like, you should be fired, like jokingly. Like, how dare you? And he's like, yeah, mate. He's like, this doesn't really make any sense, dude. He's like, the planet, and I remember learning this as well. The planet goes through like cycles of hot, cold, hot, cold. It's like the amount of warming is negligible. Like, are we even causing it? I don't know. He's like, we're polluting. 100%. Is it really a threat to our existence? And once I realized, like, we've been constantly fear mongering for decades that Manhattan's going to be underwater, Miami's going to be underwater, everything's going to be underwater, and things are still not underwater. I'm like, oh, yeah. So now just add add one more thing to the mix, and like, oh, we're cloud seeding. Well, I guess that makes sense. They've been trying to scare the shit out of us for 50 years about this. It's not really coming true. Okay, now let's really scare the shit. Like, we got to block the sun. Isn't that every dystopian movie that's ever existed? Like, they block the sun and then everything goes sideways. I'm just like, dude, don't do that. It's a dumb idea.
There's,
I don't know.
there's a reason why people should pay attention, and it's in putting all the climate stuff to one side, or whatever your particular theory might be. It's also that we human beings, we thrive on the sun. They say that
Yeah, kind of a big deal.
hue as in like the spectrum, hue man, and that essentially are when you're reading scripture, for example, and you always get these epiphanies that relate to seeing an angel. The angel came down, and allegedly the decode there is that the angel is that the angles of the photons that are coming to you from the sun, and it's in that information that lies human growth, human health, this kind of thing. The chlorophyll, which is so important in the plants we eat, because green plants are particularly nourishing and alkalizing, and that all important, hey, get outside and get your 20 minutes of sunshine a day. Which it seems it's yeah, I think people are massively massively misjudging or overlooking this point. And also, that could be part of the, people are waking up, and what better way to shut them down is to shut off the source of information. shut off the angels, the angles of light delivering the photons. So yes, I thought I'd just chuck that one in the mix.
You brought up a great point. On there's a book that I read that is very foundational into what I preach. It's the vitamin D solution. I don't know if you've read it. Fascinating book. Came out, I think, in the 90s. And this doctor just outlines, like, we used to have heliotherapy not that long ago. You would have solariums in your hospitals to cure tuberculosis, respiratory diseases. Hey, you know what? We're not going to pump you full of drugs. We're just going to put you on the roof, and you would sit there for an hour, soaking up vitamin D. And lo and behold, hey, way better than our protocols inside. And the crazy thing about it too, right? Like, we just went through a pandemic. What was one of the best treatments that was out there that they vehemently countered right in the media? Going outside and getting sun. Like, yeah, vitamin D levels were like dangerously low for the people that were the unhealthiest during this whole thing. Oh, so are you saying that we could just mass roll out vitamin D to the communities and just be like, hey, take, 1,000 or 2,000 IUs a day, get outside, and you would not have to worry about the hospitals being full? Like, is that, because that's what I read into it. So so we're good then, like, just go outside, like, that's the solution. But they didn't want to accept that that was the solution. And that, we can touch on a whole other bunch of topics, but yeah, essentially, especially for the veteran too, because we can self-isolate, and part of that self-isolation is we're not outside in the woods self-isolating, although maybe some do, but you're in your basement. There's no sunlight. You're not getting any vitamin D. You're not able to synthesize testosterone. You need vitamin D. It's like it turns on like 2,000 genes. Like, without it, you are so hamstrung. And especially if you're not getting enough from your daily living. Like, here in Canada, most of the year we're in winter. 7 months, it's pretty rough. It's cold. So you always have long clothing. Well, you need, the photons, you need the UV light to be hitting you, like, on your bare chest, on your bare back, to really synthesize enough vitamin D to carry you through the winter. So get outside, take that shirt off, like, get to the beach. Like, even if it's like a hazy day, you can still get some. get outside. And there's the war against the sun, with the sunscreens and all, like, I think it's to rob us of our humanity, I'll be honest. Because, like, why else would you want to not have this beautiful thing in your life that nourishes you, not with food, but like chemically? That's all we're doing. We have to be out in that sun. We didn't evolve. It's like I never, when I was a kid, even I'm like, why do we have to put on sunscreen? Didn't we evolve like outside? How is it possible that we just constantly need to, like, 1,000 years, even 100 years ago, they didn't have sunscreen. What did they do? Like, yeah, they just got hardened to the sun. They just got hardened to the sun. They didn't get melanomas. Maybe they did, but it didn't matter. Didn't matter. Didn't kill them. Like, these are all the things that we've just kind of lost over time. And it's so sad because, most of my days in the military were spent outside. We got a ton of vitamin D. And then all of a sudden you're a veteran. It's like, oh, no, go inside, go indoors. And don't go outside, don't walk, it's a shame. Yeah, getting some sun in your face and like grounding and just, being in nature, probably one of the most restorative healing things you could do, as opposed to sitting in a therapist's office and taking SSRIs. So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, and just to finish off, I couldn't say goodbye without you covered this so well when you talked about the prescriptions that children's are under now, so easily prescribed for things like ADHD, which I've got to be careful what I say here, but some would argue we're talking trauma responses here. The inability to focus and etc. etc. And you brought up a point that there's so many things that when people are suffering with whatever it might be, there's so many things you can do before you jump to medication. And you mentioned Pop-Tarts, and can you just kind of repeat that bit of the conversation?
Yeah. So from my teacher's perspective, right, I taught for almost 10 years in the school systems here in the Montreal area. And I would often get parents asking me to fill in their sons. I taught at a private all boys school for a big part of that. So their son would be, not performing well in school. So they would immediately go to, well, he must have ADHD, have the teacher fill in this form. And I would fill it in, but I would say, no, he's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with him. I'm like, so then I would talk to the parent if they were willing to have the conversation. I'm like, hey, why do you want to go down this route? Oh, well, we know his grades are suffering. He's not paying attention. He's having a hard time studying. I'm like, okay, when's he go to bed? Oh, I don't know, 9 o'clock. I'm like, does he have a device in his room? Oh, well, yeah, he's got his iPad or, I'm like, okay. Time is he going to bed? Oh, 9. I'm like, are you sure? Just that alone. Take away that iPad, man. The reason why he can't focus is he's exhausted looking at porn all night. Like, come on, you got a 15-year-old, 14-year-old boy who has access to pornography. Come on, like, use some common sense. Like, a parent, get in there. Do not put them on these drugs unless you absolutely did everything in your power. Are they tired from working out during the day? Like, are they in sports? Are they running around the track? Are they playing football? Are they playing hockey? Are they active? Are they being children? If yes, and still have a problem, okay, maybe. But the majority of all the kids that I saw were being medicated because the parents felt like they should behave better in class, when in reality, they just needed to be boys. They just needed to go to bed on time, eat like animals, go play, go roughhouse, be boys. And it's unfortunate because this affects boys, right? Young boys. We're medicating young boys at such an astounding rate because they don't fit in well with a classroom, which is typically run in a more feminine energy. They want you to be calm. They want you to sit down. They want you to study. They don't want you making fart noises in the back of the class, They don't take you out for physical challenges during the day. So that energy has got to come out somehow. And so medicating you, and then you get into the medication cycle, right? And then now you're under the grasp of pharma. So, for me, having the Pop-Tarts was basically like a reference to like the poor nutrition aspect and the inability for most parents. And I'm not blaming parents so much as like, they don't know what they don't know. The overwhelming majority of Western society has lost the ability to just understand what it is to be healthy. If you're And I saw this across all socioeconomic levels, because at a private school, we had, the richest of the rich, and then we had kids that were there on scholarship. So we saw they were eating the same, all eating the same things at lunch: Pop Tarts, fruit roll-ups, just sugary shit made in a factory. And so you're not sleeping, you're not exercising, you're not getting sunlight because you're in school all day, essentially under, artificial lights. And now you're feeding them just this manufactured garbage from a factory from God knows where, and think that somehow they're going to magically be able to concentrate and participate in school effectively. Come on. Like, that's not ever going to work. And so I'm talking about this for like a 14, 15-year-old, but if you're listening to this and you're a veteran, are you doing that? You could be laughing like, oh yeah, but are you doing that? Like, are you putting in the ingredients that will actually help you heal? If you're eating crap out of a box all the time, you're not eating your greens, you're not getting meat and protein and doing the things that make you feel like a human being, you're going to feel like something else. And I'm not judging, because I've been there and it feels like shit. And if you get your nutrition dialed in, you get your fitness dialed in, you get your sleep dialed in, you get your community dialed in, I'm a firm believer you don't need the medication, man. What we went through, on our, in our careers, that's an important part of who we are. Don't try and forget it. Like, deal with it, but then push through and use it as part of like your character to like build that resilience. But if you're stuck on the pills and you're stuck on the, the woe is me mentality, it's hard to get through. It's just, you got to get that crack of light. Like you said, you got to get that crack of light, and then you got to decide, okay, I'm going to go through it. And then once you make that decision, it's not like all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm going to get into a cold tub, I'm going to do breath work, I'm going to start working out a different way. I didn't do everything all at once. It's been years, it's been well over, 5, 6, actually close to 8 years. I'm not perfect. I'm not pretending that I'm some guru, not far from it. But I've just gone through that kind of journey that a lot of folks don't even embark on. And that's where the goal is. And it's actually aiming at something, going towards it. And at the end of the day, whether you actually get to that, ideal or not is irrelevant. It's just making the right decisions. And especially if you have kids, we're talking about ADHD, like being that leader, showing them that there's a way forward, and being healthy is one of the most important things you can do if you want to lead by example. And that's my final message is just, harden up, harden the fuck up, as my book says. But it means staying on the path, staying disciplined. And if you have kids, be the example so that they can be the leaders of the future, and take the torch from you. That's it.
Dave, you've been absolutely brilliant, brother. Thank you ever so much. And you'll have to come back on the show, because we never got around to slagging off Trudeau.
I got plenty on that one, man. We just dedicate a whole day to that one.
Just to see what the little fascist did during the medical shit was just probably best to leave that in history. But stay on the line so I can thank you properly. We're going to put your links up. I've been showing Dave's podcast, folks, as you can see, as we go through your book. We're going to put a link to your book. There it is. That's The Nimble Warrior. And
Harden the Fuck Up is my latest. Yeah.
For some reason, I've clicked on the wrong one, but Harden the Fuck Up.
That's it right there. Yeah.
There you go. I think from this chat, folks, I think we all need to read a copy of it. We'll put your socials, your YouTube link, and everything below the video. That just leaves me to say massive thank you for all the work you're doing. Friends at home, massive love to you all. Please look after yourselves. What did we get from that? It was learn from the past, but leave it behind. Be grateful and take action. And don't forget to like and subscribe and do all that kind of thing. Cheers.